Hey folks, Quilly here, and welcome to I Played Civilization VII for 3 hours at the Firaxis headquarters. This footage that you're seeing is not footage that I recorded. Unfortunately, we were not able to record our own footage, but this is instead B-roll footage that was provided to me. However, by wonderful coincidence, it happens to be showcasing Hatshepsut leading Egypt, which is actually exactly who I played as. So in this video here, we are going to be looking at a little bit more of the early game. They've just settled their first city over here. It is turn 2. They're choosing which technology to research, having just developed agriculture, which is the free automatic research that happens on, just after turn 1. So they're going to choose for a few. And then as they go here, they're going to mouse over these various ones. And you can pause to keep a bigger look at what these various bonuses are. So I'm going to encourage that rather than reading everything out loud. But they're going to pick sailing over here, which is great. Now I'm going to pause on the sailing, and we're going to talk about what this opens up for us. So it unlocks a building, the fishing quay, and yes, I say quay, which is perfectly cromulent. You can say quay, I don't mind, that's fine. If anyone does say quay, then we're all going to make fun of you, but yes. So the fishing quay over here is a building that generates some food, one food by itself, and that also boosts food from fishing boats. It says this is a warehouse food building. It also says that it's persistent. These are all very meaningful words that we're going to have to address. Can be purchased in towns, must be placed on a coast, a lake tile, or a navigable river. So navigable rivers are a big change to Civ 7. This is a navigable river over here. It's a very thick, wide river that you can basically embark on. It works very much like a sea tile, a coastal tile, where a unit on a navigable river gets the embarked icon. They're a boat, and they can move there. This is also would operate as a canal between these two seas because we can get our ships to go through these, which is very cool. And there's also a lot of buildings and traits that interact specifically with navigable rivers. We'll get a few hints here and there, but we get a hint right away with this fishing quay can indeed be built on a navigable river as well. So they're going to be picking this, which is great. Sailing also unlocks the galley. It also lets your units, you can see embarkation, all standard land units traverse coast terrain, and +1 food on fishing boats built in there too. Cool, groovy. So let's see what some of those words mean. Okay, so they've unlocked the scout. They're going to use a unique scout power over here. So we got the lookout over here that increases the sight range by 1. There's another unique scout power over here called search. You click on that, increases sight range by 1 for 1 turn, reveal all discoveries within twice this range. So we get some cool new powers on the scout. And I love the way the map looks. So you can see it increased the vision range of the scout. So we got a little bit more vision, but it also said reveals discoverables, I think is the term it used. And you can see this over here. This is one of our goodie huts in Civ 7, right? One of the tribal villages that you can explore and get some sort of benefit, except they come in a few different flavors. They're not always just called tribal villages anymore. That's why there's the generic term discoveries, but you still go into them and you get some sort of benefit. In fact, you'll get a choice of benefits in Civ 7, which is really cool. So we'll let them take a few moves, and I think, they're going to start building a granary over here. So the granary was unlocked by the agriculture tech, which was automatically unlocked after the first turn, and this is a building. So you can see here it's a building that generates 1 food. It also generates +1 food on farms, pastures, and plantations. Just like with the K, it also is a warehouse food building. It also has the persistent tag. Also can be purchased in towns. Again, in Civ 7, your settlements come as full-blown cities or as more minor towns. And this is a trait we've seen in lots of different 4X games. This idea of do we want to reduce the amount of micromanagement that players might have to go through, where if they plop down tons of cities, or if you're playing, say, Galactic Civilizations, for example, no relation, you've got tons of different planets. Maybe you don't want to micromanage every single one of those. So we have the idea of the minor and major ones, and the minor ones feed production into the major cities and make them individually much more potent. So that's what the town thing is, but we'll leave that aside for now. So this granary is a building. Now they're going to click on it, and they're going to have to choose a tile to plop this building onto. So in Civ 6, a granary would be a city center building. It would just appear within the city center. In Civ 6, you'd also have the concept of specialty districts like the campus or the holy site or the theater square, etc., etc. And in Civ 6, those get plopped down on a tile on the map. Those specialty districts will also have some buildings that might build within them. For example, the campus, of course, you can build a library and university and so on within that. In Civ 7, instead, each building exists in an urban district. Now, urban districts have 2 slots. Maybe that changes later on, actually, but in the Antiquities age where I was playing, they just had 2 slots. And we can actually see that in our own city center over here. The city center has 2 slots, which is what these circles represent. One slot is filled with the palace by default. The other one is empty. This granary could be placed in the second slot in the city center. Or it could be plop. And you can see we got a preview. No matter where we click here, we will get 1 extra food, right? The granary itself has 1 food production. That is it. Excuse me. So whatever tile we click on, it will generate 1 extra food for our city, including the city center. But we can put it on a new tile over here, and this will create a new urban district. I mean, it will, in 8 turns, it's going to create this granary with this urban district. And this urban district will have the granary in its first slot, and it will have its second slot still empty. So you can stack multiple buildings in each one of these urban districts. The other thing that can happen that's quite, so city walls, by the way, are buildings that go in districts, and you can build multiple instances of city walls. I'm pretty sure I'm not lying about that. I'm pretty sure you can have multiple instances of city walls. And so you could have a bunch of districts that really have kind of one real building and then could have a wall in there as well if you want to generate more defense, because as someone attacking you has to go and clear out the walls from every single one of these districts that has walls in it before they can take the city. So you can sort of stack more defenses, which is kind of cool. They're going to advance here. The city's going to grow a little. I think they'll move the... okay. So they have advanced a little bit to trigger the city growth, because I think in the previous screen, I think it said it was going to be 5 turns away, but I guess we're getting it now. They might have dummied up some stuff in this demo to highlight things. So what's happening here is this is what happens when your population grows. So when your population grows, you're going to expand your city and add a new district to it. This is going to be a rural district as opposed to an urban district. And a rural district basically works the same as a tile improvement. So I mentioned that this game, Civ 7, there are no more workers or builders. There's no more units that build improvements. Because when you break down the mechanics of it, really effectively the way these things work is for every unit of population in your city works a tile. And you want that tile to be improved. You don't want to work an unimproved tile if you want. So effectively, you kind of have this one-to-one relationship between units of population in your city and improved tiles. That breaks down later if you get specialists, which do still exist in Civ 7. And you can actually see the add specialist over here. But that's sort of generally the thing. And so what they have decided is that micromanaging builders and workers might not represent actual fun. And I have to admit, I hate builders in Civ 6. I think in Civ 6, we can talk about 6. Right, builders, you build them, they get charges, they instantly build improvements, and then eventually they run out of charges, and then they go away. I think the idea in Civ 6 was that was a way to reduce micromanagement. You were no longer managing a swarm of workers that existed from antiquity all the way through to the end of the game. Workers would take multiple turns to build improvements, and so on and so forth. The thing is, I think I felt that so I think the builders in Civ 6 were an effort to reduce the micromanagement of workers by having them have limited number of charges and build instantly. Except to me, I feel like they stressed me out more and they felt like more micromanagement because you constantly had to plan building more builders because you had to replace the old ones. And you had to be really, really sure about what improvements you put down because they burned a charge. And that was so very valuable. And it was possible to build the wrong improvement, although more on that, you might change your mind. But more devastating might be you put down an improvement somewhere and then you realize you want to build a district in that place later on. And it hurts whenever you have to replace that improvement because it costs you a charge that is so difficult to replace to build more builders, right? Whereas workers, if you decide that you made the wrong improvement somewhere, well, you can go and just swap it. All you're doing is costing your worker a little bit of time, and it's not a big deal. And also, workers could be automated. The automated workers didn't always make the optimal decision, but it was something you could do to reduce micromanagement. You can't automate builders, nor would you want to automate builders, right, in Civ 6. So, but mechanically, I think when you look at it, do the builders themselves really need to exist? What if instead, and this is what they've thought of for Civ 7, when your city grows and gains a population, you put down the population on a tile and it implicitly builds that improvement. It is called a rural district, as I believe the term they've used. And what you build is based on the tile. Now, you don't get a choice, right? On a particular tile, you're not getting to choose between a farm and a mine, except in Civ, you don't get to choose between a farm and a mine because they're not really valid alternate choices. There's actually very few times in almost any version of Civ that there is a meaningful decision to be made with your workers other than maybe what order you do things in. Generally, it's an obvious thing. Well, this hill is going to get a mine. This forest, well, I might decide to chop it. That might be the one exception. I might decide to chop a forest, which will then enable me to build either a farm if it's flat or a mine if it's not flat. But otherwise, the decisions were usually pretty basic and uninspiring. And so here, what's going to happen is they're going to click to expand. They're going to click on this tile over here, which is going to build a fishing boat on this tile. This navigable river tile is going to, they're going to put a fishing boat, which is going to generate 1 food, 1 production. I'm happy they're back to hammers, by the way. None of this gears nonsense. Hammers. 1 gold and 1 happiness by building over there. And you'll see that by putting down this rural district, it also pushed out the borders of the empire over here. So you expand these borders with these rural things. I can't remember if the borders also expand when this district, this urban district finishes. I can't recall if that's the case. Right, this scout is going to move out. They're going to move towards this goodie hut that they previously established. So we're going to get that there. You can replace a rural district. You can put an urban district out on top. And in fact, I believe, based on some conversations with some of the other players and some of the dev stuff, I believe that as you go forward in the game, especially when you get into the later ages, your big cities, especially your capitals, you're probably going to urbanize most of it. And that might mean they don't produce the basic stuff like food, but that's why you're going to be feeding it from minor towns. And let's be honest, if you think about London in real life, London doesn't grow food, right? London gets fed food from the more rural towns out in the countryside. London has urban districts that are doing other things. They're making money. They're, in this case, they'll probably be making science and, you know, culture and stuff like that. Oh, they're going to use the lookout tool. The lookout is actually a mode swap for the scout. The scout stays in this lookout mode for a little bit. This is kind of interesting because it lets your scouts continue to have purpose. Maybe later in the game, even after they've kind of revealed everything in the map, you can just park the scout somewhere in this lookout mode to get a big vision radius somewhere, snoop on your enemies. That's kind of cool, and I do like that quite a bit. So yeah, the city building, I kind of like the look and the feel as cities. The investment, here's another example. The city's just grown another unit of population here. Again, some things might be being accelerated. We can see, yeah, so you can build the lumber mills on the forests, or you can build the fishing boats over here on the Navigable River. This with the barrels, that's not a farm. Is there a resource there? I can't quite tell what's going on with the barrels. But these buildings also have a type. So, right, these are building fishing boats. They're currently generating 1 food, 1 production, 1 gold, 1 happiness. But they're researching, this player here who's playing the game is researching, I can't remember what it was called. Not the fishing tech, was it navigation, boating, sailing. I think sailing, must be called sailing. They're researching sailing, which has the K building, or the key if you prefer. I'm going to say K, just deal with it. That is an urban building. That is a district, like an urban district building that you can plop down. But one of the things it does when you put it down, it gives you food by itself, but it gives your fishing boats plus 1 food. So by building that urban building, these improvements will generate more food. And so there is some point to specializing your cities, especially early on. I mean, in the end, we'll probably want lots of things. Well, I guess you're going to decide, like these forests, these you might put all your urban districts on there, or you might leave them here, put rural districts for the farming, and then later on build a lumber mill or whatever that building might be, which presumably probably adds even more production to your logging camps. So you are still going to get that mechanic. I think a lot of decisions that you make in previous versions of Civ regarding improvements and whatnot are still going to exist, just from a different angle. We've got our first Civic unlock over here. I guess we'll let it run long enough to look at the policies. There you go. Sailing just finished. You can see here, yeah, you see plus 1 food on fishing boats. So they've built 2 fishing boats, presumably knowing, they're thinking that they're working towards sailing, which is then going to improve those fishing boats and act as a massive food multiplier. So they're going to finish their granary. I guess they have already finished their granary because they're working on their unique military unit. Oh, I think, yeah, there you go. Pottery for the brickyard, for different type of improvements. Choose the Civic. I don't know if they show the Civic tree here. We'll see it, I think, a little bit later in this. We're going to wrap up this video in just a second, but they're choosing their next Civic to research here. So again, just like Civ 6, so you've got the technology tree and the Civic tree. But with the Civic tree, you have the main Civic tree, which discipline and mysticism are examples of things in the main Civic tree. But you also get a much smaller, but unique to you Civic tree based on your empire. So as Egypt, Scales of Anubis, and Arrival of Hapi, these are just for Egypt itself. And these will unlock the unique urban buildings for Egypt in this phase. So the Mastaba, for example, and the mortuary temple. These are unique buildings for Egypt. And there's also another thing. I talked about how these urban districts have 2 slots. You can put up to 2 buildings in them. If you build both of your unique buildings in the same district, then that district becomes a unique district with a further bonus. So if you build the mortuary temple and the whatever the other one was. I can't. Mastaba? Anyway, if you build both of those in the same district, that becomes a unique district called the Necropolis. And in the build I played, anyway, again, these numbers might be completely different once we get our hands on this game. In the build I played, the Necropolis made it so that every time you finished a wonder, you gained 100 gold. And presumably, if I had multiple cities with multiple necropoli, you could presumably get even more gold every time you built a wonder. And that feels very satisfying to me. Most of the districts are going to be very freeform, but you're going to be really incentivized to double up on your uniques and make these unique districts because it's, if nothing else, it's cool and it feels good. All right, we're going to go ahead and put the cut in here. Again, I want to keep these individual videos a little bit smaller. This one's 15 minutes long. I think I was going to aim for about 10, but what a surprise. I talk too much. Hopefully you are subscribed to the video. Hopefully you've dropped a like and a comment just to help with the YouTube algorithm. And in theory, hopefully the next video for this will be available already on YouTube, if not very soon. I'm planning on releasing just a whole bunch of these throughout the day. And all put into a playlist. So there should be a description down below if you can't find it for the playlist, which will hopefully have all these videos in there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.